Good morning. Turn on the TV, watch the news, walk down the street. You will see things that make you shout, "That's not fair." Lots of things that make us sad. Lots of people are treated badly. This morning, I want to remind you that God cares about people in trouble, about people in need. And He calls on His people, Christians, to show kindness and love towards those who are in need. There was a man who was born in 1759, 261 years ago. This man was called William Wilberforce. You might have heard of him. He was a Christian, but he knew that living as a Christian was about more than just saying you believed in Jesus and going to church. He knew that if Jesus had saved him, He had saved him so that he could be more like Jesus. And Jesus cared for the hurt, the poor, and the needy. So he should too. This is his story.
When William was young, he wanted to be rich and famous. I wonder if that's what you want to be when you grow up. In those days, you didn't become rich and famous by doing unboxing videos on YouTube or by playing football or by being a singer. William became rich and famous by being a politician. A politician represents the people. People vote for them and they create laws and they help make important decisions for the country. Some politicians really cared for the people and wanted to help them. Some just wanted to be powerful and famous. What would William do with this power? When he was aged 25, his life changed forever. He was travelling around, and during this time, he spent time with a Christian who told him about Jesus. William put his trust in Jesus. He started to rethink everything he once thought was important. Did being rich and famous mean anything if so many others had lives full of sadness and difficulty? He saw how his important job and his friendship with the Prime Minister could be used for the glory of God and for the good of other people. He saw that he had a special opportunity to help. And there was one thing in the world that made William particularly sad: slavery. It's a horrible thing that still happens today. In those days it involved lots and lots of men, women and children being taken from their homes in Africa by total strangers. They would often divide people's families, and they were put onto these large ships and sold to people on the other side of the world. They would then have to work all day without being paid and were treated very, very badly. It's horrible, isn't it? And it happened because of selfish and greedy people who thought that they were more important than others. It happened here in the UK and America and lots of other places too. William became determined to get rid of the word slavery. He wanted to rid the world of slavery once and for all. It's crazy to think that William had to tell people that what was going on was wrong. But because people made lots and lots of money from slaves, they were happy to make lots of other people sad. In William's life, he would make many speeches and try to change the laws. It went against what lots of people wanted, so it made him very unpopular. When William was 28 years of age, he was made the boss of the group of people trying to stop slavery. But it was very hard. People threatened to kill him, but he kept on going. If Jesus told us that he wants us to love him and to love others as I love myself, then it's not right that there are slaves. He went to court to argue that slavery should end. The first time he went to court was in the year 1791, and he lost. He went again the next year, in 1792, and lost. 1793, 1797, 1798, 1799, and so on. He slowly won respect and the confidence of others over the years, but when he took it to court, he always seemed to lose. You know, when everything seems against you and there doesn't seem to be any light, it helps to have a friend to encourage you. William had a friend like that. He was called John Newton. He wrote poems and songs. He used to sell slaves aboard his ship until God saved him. John would write to William and tell him that God raised him up for such a time as this, and that God has brought you into public life and has a purpose for you. John compared his friend William's situation to Daniel's time in the lion's den. The God who you serve is able to preserve and deliver you. He will see you through. This was just the advice that William needed. William often got sick, but he kept on going. He kept on fighting for justice. But would the people listen? Finally, just 3 days before William eventually died, 46 years after he started the fight, his fellow politicians finally agreed. It was finally made law that Britain would no longer take slaves or sell them to America. It wasn't until 1833, after William had died, that slaves in Britain were finally made free. William was a man who not only trusted in Jesus, but believed that with faith there has to be action. William and others believed the Bible to be true. They knew that God had made everyone in his image. It meant that they couldn't live with slavery going on. What an amazing work William and his friends did in setting the slaves free. But it wasn't because they were good people. It was because of their trust in Jesus which allowed them to do this. Jesus said this: "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free." You see, we are all slaves to sin. We are all born blind. We can't see how good God is and how only he can help us. We only act to please ourselves. We can't help but do the wrong thing. To not listen to our parents. We lose our tempers. We say mean things. We steal. We act greedy. But Jesus, he came to set us free through his death and resurrection. Why don't you discuss these things with your mum or your dad over lunch today?